Welcome, everyone, to Coffee with a Codex. My name is Dot Porter. I am a curator in the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies in the Kislak Center for Special Collections, Rare Books and Manuscripts at the University of Pennsylvania. We do a lot of work through the Schoenberg Institute. We have a lot of different projects. We also have manuscript collections, a few manuscript collections. And once a week on Thursdays at noon Eastern Time, I get on Zoom and we just do an informal show and tell, 30 minutes, just to have a look at some of the books. And it's a different kind of thing from if you would just looked at it digitizing. I see Laura is saying that my network bandwidth is low, so I don't know what's happening. I apologize if things get slow, but it's being recorded on my computer and not on Zoom. So if it gets totally messy, there's always the recording. So hopefully that, Linda says it looks blurry on your end. I'm very sorry. But I'm gonna keep going unless I get pushed offline, and then we'll see. Our presenter today is actually my colleague, Louis Meiselman. Louis is the Judaica cataloging librarian. So without further ado, I am going to pass it on to Louis. Louis, welcome.
Thank you, Dot, and thank you for your introduction, and thank you for mentioning the digitization of this manuscript, which I was very happy to hear about. Our digitization team listened to my request to have this item digitized for you all for this Coffee with a Codex program, because I think that it's worth it to go through these digital images in high resolution and to see the beauty of this manuscript. Dot mentioned earlier that this is just a very attractive manuscript, which it certainly is. Um, and I want to add that you do get like a real antique sense with this manuscript as well. By antique, I mean old. Just generally the sense of the older illuminated mausoleum or something like that are coming through this early 17th century manuscript in its pages and in possibly in its binding, which is an early binding. Um, and that's something that I think it can be enjoyed with the new images that are up now. So that's something nice that we get to announce just for this program. So opening the manuscript. Well, here you see the bookplate of the former owner. We got this at a sale in June of this last year. It was a very important sale. The owner's name was Victor Klagsbald, and he was an important collector. He was born in Berlin. Later on, I believe he lived in Jerusalem, I believe, and he had a major collection of important manuscripts and rare books, all Judaic, I believe, and there was some art in the collection too. And among the things that we purchased at this auction, I think this is one of the stars. Um, so anyway, thank you, Dot, for showing that. I just wanted to point that out, that this has distinguished provenance as well. Now, before I get into the details of the manuscript, I should probably point out two things. One is what is a Memorbuch, and then the other is what is Austerlitz. So first of all, a Memorbuch is exactly it's a Yiddish word, memory book. Pretty much what that suggests. Um, it is it is the names of important communal members, of a community written down in a register like this one, that is read usually on holidays. The three holidays of the Jewish year contain a day, usually at the end of it, and additionally on Yom Kippur, so that's the fourth, where the names of the important individuals who have passed away are read out. This is distinct from the custom of yahrzeit, which is the day of death of somebody, where that day is celebrated in some way, or there is a prayer mentioned, and if there's a prayer said in the synagogue that day or that week. This is something that takes place when everybody is present at the synagogue, and nobody has to be anywhere. It's either a holiday or it's the Yom Kippur, like I mentioned. Um, the evidence that this occurred this way is very clear, as I'm going to get into. Um, and this was something that this was a custom that was done across many different locales in Central and Western Europe. Probably worth mentioning, I grew up in a German American German community that also used the Memorbuch, and they would also 4 times a year say the prayers, as well, say the names of the important communal members, as well as the prayers that are called, well, what I call in my catalog record, benedictions, that are in this record, and that's what you see in the opening up of the manuscript. Um, One final thing is, what is Austerlitz? So the most likely most people will have heard of Austerlitz through the 1805 battle. I think it was the Holy Roman Empire was fighting Napoleon. It's known as the Napoleonic Battle of Austerlitz. Um, the place that was the historic city of Austerlitz in Moravia is today under the name Slavkov. But it is the same place with a lot of the old buildings intact, if anybody ever goes there. And Thank you, Brian. And so it is a very historic Jewish community in terms of its age. There's reference of it being there already in the Middle Ages, which for Moravia is very old. Um, However, one thing that should be pointed out about this manuscript is that there's no central place where the word Austerlitz appears. That's an interesting phenomenon, because since this item was owned communally and was part of the synagogue, they probably saw no reason to say this is the Austerlitz Memorbuch. This Everybody knew that. The way we know that this is that is because of a benediction written to the rulers of Austerlitz, the House of Kaunitz, which is going to appear later, as well as the names of some later rabbis who are mentioned in the Memorbuch portion. Now, what we see on this opening leaf here, with the decorated initials for the opening word, is the first of the communal prayers that is said at the closing of the Torah reading service, in this case on holidays. Um, and as you open it, they go through some of the more typical prayers that you see replicated everywhere, and then you go through some unique prayers. Dot is zooming in on the decorated letters, which I must say on this page they've worn and possibly started rubbing down, but you still see the antiquated kind of knotwork. I use not the word knot pattern because I think knotwork suggests like a much older type of decoration. But either way, like I said, there's a sense of the antique in this manuscript, or a display of this sort of versatility to do the medieval way of decorating Hebrew manuscripts with this one. And I have no doubt that for an important communal manuscript like this, they did not spare expenses. This was something that probably cost more than most memoir books would cost, especially for smaller communities. The entire manuscript is on parchment, I should mention too. Um, so what you see there first, these are the more typical things that are said. The first is called Al Hakol. What you're looking there is called Yakum Por Khan. That's a very famous prayer. It dates from the Jewish settlement in Babylonia, and it's just is repeated and is part of the different liturgical traditions centuries and centuries later. That's a Aramaic prayer that you see in front of you.
Yeah.
Um, that continues, yeah, that continues on to the next. the next prayer, with the final one of those. And then these are all benedictions, followed by the prayer at the bottom of that verso, that recto that you see right there, what is called Ab Harachamim. Uh, the the main the main idea behind these prayers is, let's say, a prayer for people who support the synagogue, um, who support wanderers, guests, people who and people who lead the synagogue in some way. These are old traditional prayers, but they are included in the manuscript just as they were said at this distinct liturgy of Austerlitz. Av Harachamim that you see at the bottom there, that's highlighted, is something that was composed for the martyrdom of the communities during the First Crusade. That includes the famous German communities, that in this liturgy was said every Sabbath, actually. I believe. And this that you see there is just that you see it here is just a repetition of the liturgy.
So
Um, yeah,
can I interrupt for a sec?
yeah,
I've zoomed in here because some of these large initials have decorations sort of around them. So some of them are plain, like the ones
yes.
over on this side, and then it looks like some of them have these. And Brian has pointed out that there is a face here. And yes, that is, or sorry, Linda, uh, that there is a face here. And then up the one above, I think there is a little acorn there. Do you know anything about these decorations? Do you know if they're original or if they were added or if they're for any kind of purpose?
I had not even noticed that face. I have to be honest with you.
Oh,
But so thank you so much. I do now I see that face, and if you go up to the large initials a little bit above Mem Yud, um, I kind of see like a pouring jug, and then I see the acorn above it.
hmm.
Um, I don't know, that might be a sort of biblical theme. It's These
Ah,
things
okay.
were hard for me to see, and probably I got a little sucked into the whole manuscript, so I didn't even notice these small details. But what I could tell you is that, in the scheme of this manuscript and the liturgical portion, there's a there's like there's a concentration on like the fine details, and then there's also the sort of there's the sort of oldness of it all, and maybe like maybe like a little bit trying to match the older illuminated medieval Hebrew manuscripts, Hebrew liturgical manuscripts, that do have such things such as decorated patterns, um, all these kinds of flourishes above different areas where where you would want somebody to notice something. So you would have, for example, a decorated manicule or a face or
Mhm.
something like that. So I think that it possibly because they wanted it to seem antique, possibly because they wanted it to seem, to seem well executed and expensive,
Mhm.
maybe both. But for example, if you look at Yakum, which is up at the right portion of the verso right there, those are like billowing, unfurling flags, which is also
Mm.
something that you do see across Judaic liturgical decorated liturgical manuscripts, and even books, that have such a thing.
Yeah. I think Laura is asking about the little notes, the little marginal notes here.
Yes, those are later. Those are written in a different hand, and a later Chazan, a later cantor, corrected them. Um, for variants, or that they prefer to say, at some later time they prefer to say, use a different word here or add this note or something like that.
Okay.
Um, these are, the I would say that these are not the central liturgy. These are benedictions. So there are variants across different specific liturgies, and this is a specific liturgy. This is not a general Ashkenazic liturgy. So that shouldn't surprise you that there are variants written into the margins.
There's more here.
Um, So anyway, so what you're looking at, so the end of the Crusader prayer for the prayer for the martyrs of the Crusade finishes on the verso on that side, and then on the following um, are additional benedictions that were written much closer to this time. Um, so it's a specific benediction for any man or woman who donates to the different funds of the synagogue, um, including to funds for alms, funds for candles, funds for. It doesn't say this, but I'm saying this, probably heating the synagogue, which was a big stone building and it got very cold. Those kinds of things that were mentioned when everybody was present and listening to it would be a blessing or benediction to those who gift it. And that second paragraph is a benediction for people who take on the post-holiday fasting of Monday, Thursday, Monday, which was a custom that was done during this time. Then they would get a special blessing for following that fasting schedule.
Yeah. So in the chat, Brian, I think, has a confusion about the prayer for the prayer that ended over here, the Crusaders.
Yes,
Can you
yes.
say again what exactly this is?
So that's a prayer that is said at the close of the Torah reading. Like I said, sometimes it was said during certain months, or sometimes it was said weekly, um, for the Jewish communities that were martyred during the First Crusade.
Right.
That's when that was written. There's a lot of literature on this. I don't know if I'm going to have time because we have a whole manuscript in
No,
front
no,
of
no,
us.
that's okay.
But
It's just he was confused about the purpose of the prayer. So thank you for clarifying that.
yeah,
Okay.
to summarize, there's unique liturgy and then there's typical liturgy that's put together to create a manuscript where one reads the liturgy for all gathered and then the names for the important rabbis and communal leaders of Austerlitz. Um, okay, let me put what I have there. That is these are a number of benedictions for those who are ill, including women who are going to give birth or have given birth, or other people who are ill. They want to give them blessings. Hopefully, they'll get better. That's what you're looking at there. That is also kind of unique to that. Now, if you look straight ahead at that recto, that's that is a new text composed for the that is composed for the Holy Roman Emperor and his queen um, by the community. As you can see, it's a decorated page, and it's an important page. Um, if you could just imagine a cantor reading this while the Torah scrolls were present, and everybody, man, woman, and possibly child, were gathered listening presently to this benediction for the Holy Roman Empire Emperor. Now, this actually, I should mention, but based upon the names that you see in that benediction, we can date this manuscript. Um, the original names, what you do not see there because they've been scratched off and you have to look at it very closely to see what they were the names of Ferdinand II. No, excuse me. The original names in that prayer were Matthias, the Holy Roman Emperor, and his spouse was Anna of Tyrol or Tyrol. Their reign was 1612 to 1619.
Hmm.
Um, that gives us a pretty square date of when this original manuscript was composed. As you'll notice, those names were scratched out after their death, I suppose, and over it were written Ferdinand and what they wrote as Leniaro, which
And
is
this
really
is
Yeah.
It's here, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes. That's in probably a different handwriting. It looks, or a different script, it looks to me.
Mhm.
And in Hebrew, it says Ferdinandus, which is Ferdinand. And in Hebrew, it says Leniaro, which is Eleonora. Ferdinand II and Eleonora Gonzaga of the Holy Roman Emperor were married in 1622. So it tells us, it shows there that his wife, Leonaro, that exact handwriting dates to at least 1622 and probably pretty close to their wedding when they revised the communal prayer. So what you see there is a very important historical moment where they have to change the name of the king and queen for the communal benediction for the king and queen.
Right. So there's a question in the chat about the style of lettering. Does it change over time? And can you use that to help date the manuscripts just by looking at the script?
Thank you for asking that question, because you absolutely can use that to date it. Of course, you're not going to get a date, between 6 years based on a style of handwriting. We're not that lucky uh, to be able to do things like that. But there is a bifolium inside this manuscript, which when I saw it, I believe it is older based upon the textual matter and the script, which is a 16th century script, and what you see in front of you is a 17th century script. We're gonna find that text a little bit later down.
Someone asked about the decoration here at the top, so
Yes,
I'm just zooming in. It's another one of these little, this one has a little color though, but there's a little bird sitting on top of a thing there. So,
yes, yeah. That could be a bird or some kind of mythological creature. Um, there's a name, maybe Amy knows, but there's a name to these kinds of decorations, specifically where it looks like a clover leaf like that. I don't I don't know exactly what that is, but it's definitely decorative and meant to give decoration or illuminate the manuscript.
okay. Great. And Shreve Simpson is saying that certainly looks 17th century. So
Yes.
that's, yeah. Lots of ways to kind of figure out dates, uh, including the script and decoration and things written in them, all kinds of ways to do that. Okay.
Right. Just a quick word on this, just to make sure we have the time. More benedictions, including one for those who refrain from idle speech in the synagogue, this was actually a major topic at this time among synagogue decorum. There was a lot of idle chatter, and it was quite loud. The more famous, what this was one of the reasons we first noticed this manuscript at auction. Um, was that that prayer was thought to be later than this. It was brought to Prague at a later point um, than this writing, and this might be one of the earliest examples of this prayer. Of course, the prayer does have variants, but it's a I I would the prayer was described to me as almost passive aggressive. We are talking about those who are idly chattering in the synagogue and those who are chattering during this part and this part and this part of the prayers, and it was important to them, and it was something that had become a widespread problem, especially in Central and Eastern Europe. So that is also a very important thing that this manuscript carries aside for all the other material.
All right. Um, I there was a There was a question in the chat about some of the text looking white, and I think this is a really good example. The ink in some places has worn off,
Yes.
and when the ink wears off, it still leaves sometimes an impression
Yes.
of where it was, and it kind of looks lighter than the parchment, and that's what's happening there.
Yes. Yes. No, you're definitely right about that. Especially when you compare it to the text right next to it, which has not worn off. It could be for a number of reasons. it could be somebody erased it or tried to erase it. It could be that there was some kind of other piece of paper or something that absorbed the ink. I don't know. I do know that that exact benediction, I spent a long time with a lot of different lights figuring out what that one says. Doc, can you give me the folio number just to make sure I
It's
have that right?
7 verso.
Um, yeah, seven verso. It is that to me was not a controversial prayer at all. It was just for alms and vows and things like that. So to me it's still kind of a question. If somebody did want to wipe that off, why would they want to do that?
I
So
also
that's
think it's
better.
possible that because it's the whole thing, and
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is an assumption, would these have been written at the same time or would they have been written at different times, possibly? Um,
Um, Well, that's the thing. The benediction on the following page, which seems to be fairly close to what we have here. That is one written for the house of, for two rulers in the house of CAJS, who ruled Austerlitz during this time. During this time, what I mean by that is that this is right about 1620. They ruled during the 1620s into the 1630s. Um, it's difficult to find exactly their years. It's not as well documented as other places. The exact years of these specific rulers. This is the ones mentioned in the ones mentioned in the benediction are Maximilian von Kaunitz, he's the Graf, and then the Grafen, or the female Graf, which is sort of like a local ruler. What they call Oliani is Eleonora von Kaunitz, and that's they are dated to around the 1620s, into the 1630s, as I remember, but we didn't have definitive dates the way other rulers have with them. So that's more dating material, and that definitely puts this portion of the manuscript close to the earlier portion, the earlier benedictions that we saw before.
okay. My suggestion was just going to be that if these were written even at slightly different times, it could have been a different ink recipe, and it could just be bad ink that
Yes.
just flaked off. We have a minute left.
Yes.
So I
So
wanted to,
what you're looking at there, I'll be super quick. What you're looking at there is what I think is a 16th century portion based on the textual matter and the script. That is an excommunication text, abjuring those who wish to inform on their fellow Jew, as well as those who take false oaths and other types of things. That was something that took place during the 16th century. Um, that is that what you're looking at there is an earlier script of the 16th century in its special bifolium inserted into the manuscript. And then finally, Dot, if you just go for a little further,
yep, so here's the
um,
bifolium, so it's just 2 pages. Oh,
yes. Then what you're looking at is is the list of the rabbis and list of important personages and whether and that there was charity given upon their passing, that they should mention their names during the Memorbuch reading. And there you have that's how the manuscript continues, with some famous and important people are mentioned there until finally, the final rabbi to be mentioned died in 1814. Excuse me, 1811. Okay, so the final rabbi to be mentioned died in 1811, which sort of gives you an idea of when these names stopped being written in, and possibly when the Memorbuch went into somebody's private property, became somebody's private property. That's usually some kind of sign for that. So that is, in short, our Memorbuch, and then this is you know, this is a really fascinating and kind of unique manuscript in its own way. From the varying of the different types of prayers, the scripts, decorations, and historical context. So
Yeah, this is very cool. So it has been digitized. So if you go to the record, you'll see more. And if this was very blurry for you, the video, well, the photos will be in focus, and also the video should be much better. So thank you so much, Louis. It's always a pleasure to have you share your expertise with us. And thanks everyone for coming.